What is up, everybody? It is JT Sports and back to you guys with another video. This video, I'm here with my Carolina Panthers 2021 7th-round mock draft. Before I get into it, make sure that you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel because I upload NFL videos and NFL content daily. Also, make sure that you guys check out my 2021 7th-round mock draft playlist. I'm doing 7th-round mock drafts for all 32 NFL teams as we near the 2021 NFL draft. So when you look at the Carolina Panthers, I am really high on the Carolina Panthers this year. If there was a team that I think could be a sleeper team that nobody thinks has a chance to make it to the playoffs, it could be Carolina. Now, when you look at Carolina, you bring in Sam Darnold. And I understand that a lot of people aren't all that fascinated with Sam Darnold. They rather, have a Deshaun Watson or a Justin Fields or somebody like that. But listen, Sam Darnold, if you give him a good team, is a really good quarterback. And for the people who don't really watch a lot of New York Jets football, if you watch the games that Sam Darnold played in, he showed a lot of flashes of talent. He was just a guy who was held back by a bad organization, a bad head coach, and a bad overall roster. And when you look at all the quarterbacks who have had success in the NFL, who have been taken the first round, you want to know something that they all have in common? They all have played on really good teams, really good head coaches, really good front offices. If you name your top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, who does he have? A great head coach, Andy Reid. Russell Wilson has Pete Carroll. Lamar Jackson has John Harbaugh. Josh Allen has a really good head coach, Sean McDermott. If you even name your top 10 quarterbacks, the only quarterback who won't have a good head coach would be Deshaun Watson. But every good quarterback, majority of the times, has a really good head coach and a pretty good team around them. So for Carolina, I think they should give Sam Darnold another playmaker. 8th overall, I think they should go ahead and select tight end Kyle Pitts. I think the two best fits for Kyle Pitts are the Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals, because I think these are the two teams who can get the most out of Kyle Pitts and really understand how to utilize Kyle Pitts, because Kyle Pitts is going to be a really good tight end. Okay, depending on which team he goes to. Now, if he goes to a team that has an offensive coordinator that isn't creative and doesn't know how to utilize his strengths and hide his weaknesses, then he's most likely going to end up being a bust, or we could end up seeing him move to wide receiver. So I think Kyle Pitts' production and how good he will be at the NFL level is heavily dependent on which team drafts him and who's going to be his offensive coordinator. I really think Joe Brady or either Cliff Kingsbury are two coaches. Well, Joe Brady being the OC, he's not a head coach, but either way, those are two teams that I think will really be able to utilize Kyle Pitts and maximize his talents. And I really think Kyle Pitts, the Carolina Panthers, will be a phenomenal fit. And for Kyle Pitts going to the Carolina Panthers, you're going to be with Sam Darnold, you're going to have Robbie Anderson, you're going to have DJ Moore, you're going to have a offense full of playmakers there. So for the Panthers and Sam Darnold, if you get Kyle Pitts, you get Sam Darnold another weapon, then you're heading into round 2 when you can focus on the defense side of football by taking cornerback Tyson Campbell. Tyson Campbell is a super athletic corner. He has really good size. He's a very good press cornerback, which a lot of people don't really talk about. And on top of that, he has very good hips as well. I think Tyson Campbell should be able to come in and be a day one starter right away for the Carolina Panthers. And I think that's what's holding back this defense. I think what's holding back Carolina is their secondary. Their safety position was kind of lackluster last year, aside from the phenomenal rookie that he had in Jeremy Chin. Their cornerback position isn't all that great. Dante Jackson, I think he's a middle-of-the-road corner. I think he has, the potential to be above average corner, but I don't think he'll end up being an elite corner, because by this point, I think Dante Jackson should be an elite cornerback. So I think we pretty much know what Dante Jackson is. He's an average to above average corner. Now you bring in Tyson Campbell, now you're going to have another guy who also has potential to be a really good corner as well. I think Tyson Campbell could very well be a very good pickup for Carolina, and I think he may be one of the more overlooked cornerback prospects in this draft class. So for him going to Carolina, I think Carolina will be getting a very good pick there in the 2nd round, 39th overall. 73rd overall in the third round, have them selecting linebacker Chaz Surratt out of the University of North Carolina. Chaz Surratt, for those of you guys who don't know that much about Chaz Surratt came into the North Carolina program as a quarterback. Then he converted to linebacker, and he ends up being a pretty good linebacker for North Carolina last year. Now, Chaz Surratt has potential to become one of the best linebackers in the NFL. I mean, he has the speed, he has the athleticism, he has the size there as well. The only thing he doesn't have is the experience in the IQ of the linebacker position, which you can easily teach that with more repetition, more snaps in the game, and in practice as well. So I think in the third round, you get Chaz Surratt. I don't know if you start him right away, because if you start Chaz Surratt, you're basically going to be like, hey, man, you're just going to have him like a deer in the headlights, because you're going to have a guy who doesn't really have that much experience playing the position. On top of that, you're just going to be throwing him into the fire. You're going to have a lot of growing pains with Chaz Surratt. So you can either start him and go through the growing pains, or you can have him sit for a couple of years, learn the position, and then eventually you can insert him into that starting role. But I think for right now, in round 3, I would pick up Chaz Surratt, and I would start him as a backup, and then, you know, as he gets more experience, as he continues to learn the position and the insides and outs of the linebacker position, I think he can end up becoming a really good quality starter linebacker with the potential of being one of the best linebackers in the NFL, because he has the speed that he can cover sideline to sideline. He has the speed to become a very good coverage linebacker as well. He has all the tools at his disposal to become one of the better linebackers, or one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Round 414th overall, have offensive tackle Josh Ball out of Marshall going to Carolina. Now, Josh Ball started his college football career playing for Florida State. Now, he ended up having some off-the-field issues, which he ended up going to Marshall University. He has ended up being a pretty good Group of 5 offensive tackle prospect. He's 6'7", 308 pounds, has great size. He's a very phenomenal pass blocker. He has character concerns, and people question how good of a run blocker he is. So I think Josh Ball in the 4th round, you're getting a guy who could potentially blossom into a very good offensive tackle, but he can enter the league as a backup. Maybe he can start at guard if he doesn't work out at offensive tackle. But for Carolina in round 4, you're getting a very good value pick in Josh Ball. Round 5, 152nd overall, I have defensive lineman Cam Sample out of Tulane. He's 6'3", 267 pounds. He can play in any scheme. He's a good power rusher. Don't really know what he is. I don't really know if he's a D tackle or a D lineman. He may be a little bit undersized to be a defensive tackle at the NFL level. He's only 267 pounds, but he also has versatility that you can put him in any scheme. You can put him at DN. He could play outside linebacker at need be. It just depends on what kind of system, what kind of scheme he's going to be going to, but he has the versatility that he can play in any scheme, whatever team. So I like Cam Sample a lot. He has some good power rush moves overall. Not that much, not that much film that I've watched on Cam Sample because he plays for Tulane, but from the very few glimpses I've seen, because I have watched a couple of Tulane games this past year, he has potential to become a very good pass rusher depending on where he ends up lining up. So you get a guy who has the versatility to play pretty much any position on the defensive line. I think Cam Sample will be another good pickup in round 5 for the Carolina Panthers. Round 694th overall, one of my favorite under-the-radar prospects in this draft is wide receiver Jalen Darden. I think he'll be a really good selection for Carolina because they just lost Curtis Samuel, who signed with the Washington football team this past free agency. So now you're probably going to be needing another wide receiver who you could put in that slot receiver role. I think Jalen Darden is the perfect replacement for Curtis Samuel. He's 5'8", 174 pounds. He's great in space, has quick acceleration. He's great after the catch. He reminds me a lot of Tavon Austin. When Tavon Austin was coming out of West Virginia, he was regarded as one of the most dynamic wide receiver prospects ever because what he was able to do with the ball in his hands. When you look at Jalen Darden, I think he has, the good skill sets that he can thrive in this Joe Brady offensive system, which is pretty much West Coast oriented. So with Jalen Darden, if he can get the ball in his hands, he's going to end up becoming a impact rookie right away for Carolina in that slot position. Now, I think that his potential is a little bit limited because he's 5'8", 174 pounds, so he pretty much won't be that much of a threat outside, but he can make a really good career being a really good slot receiver for the Carolina Panthers, and I think he's a really good fit in Joe Brady's offense, because Joe Brady's offense is all about timing and rhythm and getting the ball out pretty fast, and that's when you have a guy like Jalen Darden, excuse me, he's going to be able to get the ball in his hands and be able to make something happen after the catch with it. With their last selection this year's NFL draft, 223rd overall in the 6th round, have them selecting the halfback out of Virginia Tech, Khalil Herbert. Well, you just lost Mike Davis, who was elsewhere in free agency, so now you're going to need a backup to, spell Chris McCaffrey. I think Khalil Herbert would be a really good pickup. Khalil Herbert, he's a pretty balanced running back. I have questions about his, burst, and also his vision as well. But I think it'd be a pretty good backup for Carolina. So this is it for my Carolina Panthers 7th-round mock draft. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section down below. Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and